Welcome back to another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. This is your host, Russell Bruce. And today we have another fiery episode. And we have my good friend, we go way back, Mr. Robert Scott Jr., also known as I Am King of Credit. And Rob, just for a little context here, was my very first engineering major back around 1999. And we worked together, traveled together, became the best of friends, did real estate investing together, a lot of good things, right? So, very special friend of mine. And once again, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Dave. You forgot to tell me we played golf together too. Boy.
We play golf. Yeah, well, the thing, I talked to somebody yesterday about that. Matter of fact, I was like, well, buddy, he would keep me drunk while we played. We would drink, so I never got that good at it. I said, but I had a lot of fun. So, hey, man, why don't you tell these people a little bit about your background? Who is Rob?
Well, as you said, I originally was in IT. That was I started working in Nextel Communications in 1996. I think you and we became friends around 98, 99. We did real estate together. And so I've always been in that field, and then, later on, right, I got back into IT, but real estate and finances and credit and things of that nature have always been my passion. So here over the last couple of years, that's what I've been doing. I've been focusing on credit, business credit, entity structures, estate planning, but really with a main focus on personal credit and business credit. So I have over 100,000 followers on TikTok. They know me as I'm King of Credit. So that's what's been going on.
All right. And just so everybody is aware, this particular podcast, we're going to be talking about credit repair and building business credit. And Rob is one of those guys, you know how they say you always want to have smart people around you. He was the smart guy I kept around me who always was educating me on things. Has a Wall Street background as well. So, Rob, let's jump right into it. How did you even get into credit repair and why is it important?
Well, it's definitely important, right? Everything is credit. You can't get a good job these days. If you got bad credit, you're going to pay high interest rates, the credit cards, mortgages, things of that nature. But, Russ, back in like 2008, you remember when the market went down in 2008? Yeah. I still had a couple of properties. I think about 17 of my properties went into foreclosure. My cars got repossessed. I had an IRS tax lien. I had all of these inquiries. I mean, everything kind of fell apart in 2008. And so, I was on a quest after that to try to get my credit back together. But unfortunately, I couldn't find anyone who had enough information or was willing to share the information that was going to help me out. A lot of people today always ask, well, Mr. Scott, why you didn't go to the CFPB? Well, the CFPB didn't come into existence until 2011 because of what transpired in 2008. And so, I tried, Russ. I tried to pay people, because in the absence of knowing what to do, you hire somebody else, right, to do what they do best, and you do what you do best. So I paid somebody $399 down, $99 a month. 4 months went by. My score went up like 20 points. I was disappointed. I'm like, listen, 20 points? I paid almost $800. 20 points, I'll do it myself. So basically, that's what I did. I canceled the contract. I was scouring the internet, found what's called a 609 debt validation letter. And supposedly, Russ, what you do is you fill out the letter. If the consumer reporting agencies can't validate the information, then they must remove it. Well, I don't know what happened. Maybe I sent the wrong letter. I didn't put the right information. I don't know what the hell happened. But what I do know is everything came back verified. So basically at that point, I was just, I was like, listen, forget about it. I'll just wait 7 to 10 years, wait till the information fall off. And then, I'll just start all over again. But then a couple of months went by, I was hanging out, I wasn't really at the club, but I was hanging out. And one of the guys was talking about consumer law. And he started talking about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the IRS, the FTC, the SEC, and all of these agencies that are designed to help us as consumers. And so I didn't really know anything about it, but, I was listening in. After I left there, I spent about 100 hours researching everything that I could about consumer law. And the two things, Russ, that I can tell you that I know for sure. Number one, anything can be deleted. I don't care what you have on your report. Late payments, student loans, bankruptcies, anything can be deleted. But here's the other thing that was interesting, that our consumer rights are being violated each and every day. But we didn't know that. And most people don't know because they don't know the law. You know what I mean? And so that's really what it was. It was the fact that I had bad credit. I'm not one of these individuals who I took a credit course or, I just know one law. I've actually studied. I put time and effort into studying the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Fair Billing Act, and all of those things that would help consumers. So that's basically how I got to this space.
Good stuff. And just to piggyback off of that, you remember back when we were doing real estate, one of the slogans was cash is king, but most people didn't have cash. So your credit was really your heartbeat as an investor. So, we pretty much had to monitor that, like somebody who's monitoring their sugar levels or their blood pressure. So, and to this day, I'm talking about it's like I make sure I pay my monthly fee. I constantly watch it like a hawk because it's extremely important. So what are some of the myths and realities, surrounding credit? Like, we hear you talking about UCC codes, things of that nature. And, we always hear about the big three, like Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. What about the secondary credit bureaus? What role do they play?
Well, the secondary, Russ, if I might, let me kind of walk you through what I learned in that process, right? Because it took me about a year to go from my score had dropped so low. I was like a 435, something like that. So it took me about a year to get into the 700. And I basically created a framework that I call it 5 Simple Steps to Credit Repair. And so let me share that with your audience if I can. One of the very first things that I suggest people do is get a copy of your credit report. Now, it seems very simple, right? But the question is, where do you go to get your report? I tell people, don't go to Credit Karma. Let me give you 3 reasons why I wouldn't use Credit Karma. Number 1, with Credit Karma, you only get 2 scores. Number 2, there's no account numbers. So if you got 2 Capital Ones or 2 Affirms, how are you going to know which one is which? And lastly, when it comes to Credit Karma, the score, it's not that it's wrong, but it's derived by a different algorithm, right? Something called a Vantage 3.0, as opposed to the FICO algorithm, which is the industry standard. So number 1, you got to get a copy of your credit report because in order to fix it, you got to face it. Number 2, when you get a copy of your report, what I suggest most people do is look in the personal profile section. Make sure there's only 1 name, 1 address, and 1 employer. Now, you're not going to get any points from updating this information, but it's definitely going to help you seem more credible. Russ, can you imagine if you pull my report and you saw I had 9 different names, 15 different addresses? You wouldn't think I was credible, right? So number 1, get a copy of your report. Number 2, update your current information, remove all the old information. Number 3, if you got a bankruptcy, Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, or you have an eviction, my suggestion would be, and here's where the secondary agencies come in, would be to do a security freeze on these secondary agencies. Now, there are over 400 of them, but let me give you the top 6. LexisNexis, CoreLogic, ARS, Innovis, Check Systems, and Early Warning Service. It is these secondary agencies who are directly responsible for disclosing your bankruptcies and your evictions because they get the information from the public records through a website called PACER, right? Public access to courthouse electronic records. Well, the problem with that is you, as a consumer, did not give them what's called permissible purpose under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, 15 U.S.C. 1681 BA2, to divulge that information to the consumer reporting agencies. So number 1, get a copy of your report. Number 2, update your current information, remove all the old information. Number 3, do a security freeze on the secondary agencies, especially if you have a bankruptcy or if you have an eviction. Number 4, you need a strategy. Russ, it is absolutely imperative to have a strategy because otherwise, I mean, imagine you and I, we did computers together, right? We did IT together.
Yes.
How are we going to fix something expeditiously without a strategy? Right? You got to know where to look, right? You got to know, we were just talking about, you got to know which command to pull up, which you need a strategy to attack the problem. because otherwise it'll take us all day to figure it out. Well, credit is no different. You need a strategy. Let me give an example. I'm sure you've sent in a letter before. And when you send in a letter, things don't always get removed immediately. Sometimes things come back as verified. Okay, well, now what? If it comes back as verified, now what? What I found, Russ, by doing this, I've been doing this for quite a while. What people are doing is they're buying these ambiguous letters that do not speak to the specificity of their particular issue. They're sending them in and they're not getting results, but they're wondering why, because that's not a strategy. Buying a letter is not a strategy, right? So number one, get a copy of your report. Number two, update your current information, remove all the old information, one name, one address, one employer. Number three, do the security freeze on the secondary agencies. Number four, develop a strategy. And then number five, I would say execute that strategy in writing. A lot of people call over the phone, but I don't really call over the phone too much. I like to do everything in writing because eventually you might have to file a lawsuit. And obviously we want to have the paperwork when we go into the court. But that 5 simple steps framework, I think anybody can use it to really just get started.
Good stuff. So outside of, eliminating negative items off of a credit report, what are some other important things such as trade lines? Like, let's talk about like trade lines and other important things that help build the credit profile that are needed.
I think when we look at when you talk about the credit profile, right, there are 5 areas. We talk about payment history. Payment history is the most important. 35% of your overall score worth 192.5 points. Coming in at number 2 is credit card utilization. 30% of your score, 165 points. Then we have average credit age. Then we have total number of accounts and new credit. So if you have late payments, that's one of the biggest things you need to get removed, because one late payment could drop your score 50 points. Just one. So remove the late payments. The next thing I would think of would be credit card utilization. So like my partner, it's not really my partner, one of my students, his name was Ricardo. Young man, 22 years old, got his very first credit card. Russ, he got a Capital One credit card. I was proud of him because, it took him a while, very first credit card. But these young folks, you can't tell them nothing. The next month, he went and bought some Jordans, maxed out the card. His score dropped 82 points in 1 month because of the utilization, right? It doesn't matter the limit of the credit card, but it matters how much of it you use. In the credit world, high utilization is a signal of desperation. So you got to keep the balances down. If you want to see your credit go up 50 to 100 points, bring down the balance of your credit card between 1% and 6%, and watch it just shoot up. So you can remove the late payments, that will help. You can lower the utilization on your credit cards, that will help. Trade lines do help, Russ. They do. But what I've seen over time is that if you add a trade line in the midst of the storm, you don't really get the benefit from it. So what I would just suggest people do is remove the negative items first and then add the trade line. So repair your credit and then build it. Now, if you didn't have any credit at all and you were in the building stage, then I would say, yeah, go ahead and get a trade line, right? And I think there's a company called Trade Line USA. And there are 2 trade lines that I tell most people to get. One would be a high limit credit card. When I say high limit, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50,000. And then the other one would have age. So regardless of the amount of the credit card, you want the age. So 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Between those 2, a secured a checking account, savings account, secured credit card, and maybe a secured loan, that would easily put the person in the 700s, maybe 725, 735, somewhere in there.
So what's the magic number of trade lines? You hear some people say, hey, you need 3 to 5 trade lines. Like, what's the magic number? Like, is it 1, 2, 5, 10?
I don't know if there's a real magic number. What I do know is statistically, when we look at all the people who have perfect credit scores, they usually have 10 accounts, 10 open accounts, and 4 major credit cards: American Express, Visa, MasterCard, and Discover. So I don't know if there's a magic number, but what you do want, right, is you want a good credit mix, because you're not going to have all credit cards and have a high credit score. You got to have a mortgage and a car loan, revolving credit, secured credit. Just a good credit mix in various areas. That's what we've seen when we look at the statistics.
Good stuff. So, like today, you hear a lot of people, and including myself, assisting their children in building their credit, right? So, can you walk us through how you could help build, say, a child or another friend, relative, whoever that you're trying to help them build their credit? How we can do that by adding them as a user on your credit card account?
Good question. Russ, you can start when your children are 13. So a 13-year-old can't get credit, but can start to build a credit profile. So because, right, we're good stewards of our credit, then all you have to do is, like I said, if you would take your son or your daughter to a credit union, I like to start them off with credit unions. They're a little bit more easier to deal with than these big banks. Get them a checking and a savings. Go ahead and get them a secured credit card. Get them a secured loan, and then add them to 2 of your credit cards as authorized users. Now, don't give them a credit card. Don't give them a credit card. Don't give them a credit card. Don't say that. Don't give them a credit card, but definitely add them as authorized users. So if you were to do that, checking in a savings, secured credit card, secured loan, and then 2 of your credit cards, one that has a high limit and one that has age, they would be set. So imagine if you started that when they were 13, by the time they got to be 18, they would definitely be at 800, and ready to start to buy assets that produce income. That's what I tell people to do with their credit. Don't just Russ, here's something that's very interesting. I meet people every day that have high credit scores and are broke. And that boggles my mind. I'm like, wait a minute. How is it that you got a 780, but you broke? I don't know. I guess the difference between having high credit and knowing what to do. I guess those two.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that goes back to some of the other things we used to always talk about. Like we would always read Robert Kiyosaki's material, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And we played the cash flow game, all that stuff, right? Don't tell me you still have it. There you go. That must be a new one. Is that a new one or the same one we played years back?
No, that's a new one.
Yeah, so it goes back. It's no different than, say, somebody hits the lotto. Like if somebody has a poverty mindset versus a wealth mindset, like that person who has a poverty mindset hits the lotto, say, for $1 million. What's the rule? Like within a year or two, this person is broke in about $2 million in debt. All right, because they went out, leveraged it, got loans. Like people talked them into everything. They didn't know how to say no to their new relatives, let alone their old relatives, and they go broke. Versus now you get someone who understands money. You may have had someone who trained them when they were younger, or even more recently, they really understood how to buy assets instead of liabilities. And they take that same $1 million 2 or 3 years later and they flip it. Now they have $3 million.
Yeah. Because, I realized a while ago that money doesn't make you smart. All it does is expose who you really are. So if you're a dummy and you get money, you're just a dummy with money.
Facts.
Money does not make you smart. It doesn't make you smart. Yeah.
It's just a great multiplier. It's going to multiply who and whatever you are. Because like if you have a drug problem and someone gives you $1 million, you could pretty much figure out what's getting ready to happen next, right? Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So speaking of credit, what do you tell your clients, or even if you were, say, dealing with a child and you're building their credit profile before they go out and start seeking to make purchases or whatever, what is a good credit score to get to before you start purchasing and getting dings on your credit?
Yeah, I would say 680, right about now. 680 is always a safe number. But Russ, it's not just about the credit score. It's about the credit profile. Your credit profile is far more important than your credit score. What we say in the credit world is you can fake out the algorithm, but you can't fake out the underwriter. So, right, if you're going to get a credit card, there's no one really looking at it. So you might be able to put anything. But when you go to buy a house or a car, something like that, and somebody's actually looking at your profile, they can see these authorized user accounts. And when you're buying a house, an authorized user account, it doesn't count. You have to have primary accounts. So, you know, what I tell people is just take your time. You need to be patient, persistent, and diligent. Have a plan, and make sure you try to get to 680. You want to make sure you have 100% payment history. You want to keep the credit card utilization below 10%. You want age, right? Because every time you open up a new account, your score goes down. So stop opening up so many accounts and let your credit kind of marinate a little bit. And then have some diversity. Don't just get credit cards. Get a secured loan, maybe a mortgage or a store card or something like that. But definitely have more diversity. But you know, good credit, it just takes time. It takes time to really build up to a good solid profile that's in congruency with the actual score.
So if I'm hearing you correct, so the authorized is, once again, if I put somebody on my account as an authorized user, then my credit profile gets transferred over to there, my good payment history, et cetera. And it goes back. How far does it go back? Does it go back for the entirety? Like, say if I had the card for 5 years, does it give them the whole 5 years, or is there a cutoff?
I think it's about 5 years, something like that. I'm not really sure how far it goes back. What I do know is, like, there's certain credit cards that don't work that way. All the cards, so like, let's say you get American Express. American Express won't backdate, but it will start from the day you put them on going forward. But American Express is one of those credit cards they don't. Capital One will do it. Discover will do it. But Amex, they won't do it.
Yeah, could you explain briefly why Amex won't do it, just so everybody has clear understanding?
You know, I don't know. I think that that's their own particular protocol. I don't know why they don't do it. You know what I mean? I think that because there's nothing inside the Fair Credit Reporting Act or any law that says that they can't do it. Right? I think that it's because they're a premium credit card. You know, when you think American Express, you know, they're a premium credit card. And so I think they just decided as a business model that that's something that they weren't going to offer. But, you know, I don't really know the truth of it. That's just what I think about it.
Okay. And then you said, okay, they get the authorized cards. Say, for example, you give somebody a couple authorized cards. Now they have a credit profile that's building. Now you mentioned primary. So explain briefly, just so everybody has clear understanding. Primary is when they go get their own card in their name at this point. Is that correct?
Right. So that's what we're doing. What we're doing is we're really setting them up. So when they get a primary card, it could be a decent card. It's not going to be a Capital One 300 limit credit card, right? So by the time, if we start, let's say you start when your child is 16 and you've been working on their credit for 2 years. Now they're 750 with a solid profile. Now what they can do is they can go to Capital One or Discover, American Express, and get a credit card in their name. Anything you get in your name is a primary. Anything else is right, your authorized user or something like that. So once that happens, now we can release them off of our credit, and then now they can, you know, they can go on their own. Now, let me say something about co-signing. Russ, you and I, we have children. You know, that whole co-signing thing is a no-no. I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I could and listen, I'm not gonna start crying on your show about all the things that have happened to me. I started co-signing for my son. But let me tell you, just don't do it. And not only would I not do it for my son, Russ, I wouldn't do it for my wife either. Let me say it. I wouldn't do it long term. Because life has a funny way of lifing. And what happens is, if something happens to me and she's attached to my credit, and God forbid I get sick or something like that, now I've ruined my credit and her credit, right? So co-signing, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but just be very careful. I mean, I could write a book on all the people that I've talked to over the last 10 years, you know, that have some very tragic stories about co-signing. And when I say co-sign, I'm talking about giving children these cards. So you put them on your credit and you give them a card. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. All right. Let's shift gears a little bit. So now that one has built up their personal credit, and you mentioned that a lot of these people have great credit scores. You have people 700, 750, even in the 800s, and they've done absolutely nothing with it but looked at it, right? So explain the benefits or transitioning into now business credit and how they could leverage their personal credit score and their personal profile to now engage in business credit.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, what happens is a lot of people, we want to get out of that 9 to 5, right? Because we've been indoctrinated to work 40 hours a week for 40 years and then retire 40% of our income. That's not going to work. That math doesn't math. And so you want to get out. And when we read, you talk about Robert Kiyosaki, I think that what happens is a lot of people, rather than starting a business, they become self-employed. And there's nothing really wrong with being self-employed if your next transition is going to be, to try to start some type of full-fledged business. Once we talked about getting to a 680. So what I've learned here over the last couple of years is the first thing that I would do is I would start some type of entity structure. Most people go out and start an LLC. Well, I don't think you should start an LLC. And here's one of the reasons why. When we look at ownership, the name of the game is to control assets and not own them. And so if you get an LLC, it's going to have the name of the LLC, but right under it's going to have your name. So there's no anonymity there. I would suggest that most people start a C Corp. And people are like, oh, well, you have double taxation. That's not true. There's no double taxation, right? Or it costs more. It doesn't cost more. It's the same thing. If you go to the Secretary of State, it costs just as much to open up an LLC as it does to open up a C Corp. There's no extra cost there, or it's not substantial anyway. So now, once you get the entity structure, you can't just walk into a bank and get funding because you got good credit. You got to make the business fundable. Well, what does that mean, right? You got the EIN. You need a virtual address and a virtual phone number. You need a website. You need a professional email address. You can't go to the bank with no Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, all of that stuff. That's not going to work. You need to register with the Better Business Bureau. And then you need trade lines, right? You need to build up your Paydex score. So one of the fast ways to build up your Paydex score is to get NAV, eCredible, Credit Strong. You can go to Sam's Club. Once you get those trade lines, and Russ, all of these are just using your EIN number. You're not even using your personal credit yet. So you're going to get all of these trade lines. That's going to give you an 80, 90 Paydex score in about maybe 60 to 90 days. Now, if you want, you can pair the two together. You can use your personal credit. Your business entity structure is fundable. Now you can walk into Truist or Bank of America, PNC, KeyBank, and personally guarantee to get some type of funding.
Okay. And you see today also, a lot of people who couldn't traditionally walk into a bank and say, get $50,000 to $100,000 for, a business, without having to jump through a lot of red tape. By building a business credit, they may find different avenues through credit cards, et cetera. And there's all kind of different programs out there where you hear people getting $100,000 to $250,000 to go out, and definitely, like you said, have a plan, whether it's real estate, you buying houses just to rent out Airbnb, renting cars, like, et cetera. There's so many different things that people can do, but I would highly advise everybody to have a business. Like they say, if you make cookies, like sell cookies, do something.
What I found is that what people are doing is they're getting their credit together, getting these LLCs, going into these banks, they're getting money, but they don't have a plan.
Exactly.
Right? Next thing you know, they're in Jamaica or Dominican Republic or, they're somewhere. You're like,
iced out.
Yeah, iced out. You know what I mean? And so then now they're coming to me, Mr. Scott, can you fix my credit? Because, I had this business and and then I'm like, well, you really didn't have a business. You were really self-employed, right? And then you never had a plan. So that's the biggest part is to really, if you're going to get the money, have a plan. Don't just get the money. And let me tell you something else, Russ, about what I suggest people do when you get the funding. Don't spend it all. Spend half. If you get 50,000, invest 25 and use the other 25 to service the debt. Don't use all the money. You know what I mean? And then also you can raise capital. You don't always have to go to a bank to get money. You can create a business plan and then shop the business plan around and get people to invest in your endeavor. Russ, now they're doing DSCR loans. Have you heard of that?
Explain that one. No, I'm not familiar with that.
So the DSCR loans, you remember how we used to do real estate back in the days? It was based on equity. So now what they're doing is they're giving loans based on equity. So let's say we go out and buy a property and we can rent the property out for more than the mortgage. Then they see it as an asset and they'll give you lending based on that. Now you have to qualify, but the qualifications are not as strict as if you were buying your own home. So it's an easy way, not an easy way, but it's a different way to get into real estate, especially even if you don't have good credit, as long as the property can service itself. So here's where this really shines. When you buy a multifamily. So if you buy a duplex or 3 or 4 units, this is where this actually really makes sense. Because if you buy 4 units, you only need 2 to pay the mortgage. The other 2 are cash flow. So, and then if you're buying your first home, why buy your own home and you're the only one there? Why not buy a duplex? You live on one side, right? Rent out the other side. The tenants are paying your mortgage. You live mortgage free. And you can get one as low as $560.
Yeah, and that, and to hear that, a lot of people think, oh, that just sounds good as pipe dream. But I'll tell you a real life story. So one of my former coworkers did exactly what you're saying. He went out and purchased, I think it was like between 13 to 16, it was like a townhome community, right? Mm-hmm. He purchased it, renovated it, and he and his wife made a decision that they were going to live in one of the units, and they had their cars were paid off, that they weren't going to purchase anything new, no new car notes, no new anything. And they pretty much lived rent free because they only had to rent out, say, about 4, it was like 3 or 4 of the units. Once those got rented out, pretty much paid for everything. Everything else was pure profit. And 5 years later, they went and purchased their dream home. They live in a home that's valued over $1 million. He made some wise investments, purchased a couple businesses, a couple standing businesses, and he had invited us to a party at his home about a year ago, and he was just elated. He's a multimillionaire now, and no longer in IT. He was a hell of an engineer, but it's like he ran those same plays, and it's like it's not difficult, but a lot of people don't have the ability to be patient and allow delayed gratification to come to fruition. And he did it. He did it textbook.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really what it is. It's the patience and it's having a strategy. Because you and I know when we used to flip properties, we would look for certain type of properties, go in, and we knew how to do the burst strategy way before, people act like this is something that's brand new. You and I were doing it back in, the early 2000s. But we had a strategy, right? We'd go in, tear the property up, fix it up, do the draws, refinance the property, pull the cash out. We had a strategy, and that's the thing that it's in everything. Do you have a strategy? Do you have a strategy to buy a business? Do you have a strategy to fix your credit, to remove the late payments and things of that nature? So Russ, I didn't mention this to you. So this is the first time that I'm saying this. I've created the very first AI-powered credit repair program ever in existence.
Good stuff.
My program, not only will it help you repair your credit, but it'll help you build business credit. If you need to go to court, we have these collections and they're taking you to court. it'll tell you what to say. It'll write all the documents. If you need a trust, it'll do the trust. So most programs, all they do is personal credit. But this program does personal credit, business credit, and a little estate planning. Oh, and Russ, it speaks every language. So now if you're an immigrant and you need to fix your credit, all you got to do is talk to the AI and it'll tell you in your language exactly what it is you need to know.
Is there any way you could do a sneak preview, or is this exclusive?
Let me see, Russ. Hold on.
Is
I
there
hate I hate
any way to give people a little teaser?
Hold on, let me see.
It sounds amazing. And if it is what I think it is, I like to say I seen where you posted a sample.
Yeah, let me see. Let me know if you can see can you see my screen?
Here, let me put you up on Front Street here, buddy. Go for it. Your screen is now.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is it. It's called Consumer and Business Credit Pro. And basically, it's just an AI. So let's say you know nothing about how to repair your credit. You just type it in. Type, where do I start? Where do I start? Hit return. And there it goes. It'll tell you, right? Oh, this is on the business side. Let me switch it over. Just say let's talk personal credit. Right. So now it tells you to go ahead and pull your report, prioritize the negative items. Right. You can rebuild the account. It gives you a realistic timeline. Oh, and Russ, you can also upload your credit report into this AI and it'll scan it and then it'll do all the letters that way.
Get out of here.
Oh, yes. Yes. So you see it right here. Do you want me to start by analyzing your report? Upload it here. Or would you like me to draft starter dispute letters for most common negative? Then they ask you, what are you doing? A charge off, late payment, student loan. It'll do all of that. But let's say you're already in it and you're dealing with a collection like LVNV, one of these collection agencies. Watch this. Say write a dispute letter to LVNV. And let's say that's all you know. You don't really, because you don't really know credit like that. Right? But you know the name of the company. So we'll just leave it short like that. Let's see what it says. Right? Look, it says, got it. Let's create a dispute letter to LVNV Funding, one of the most common debt buyer collection agencies. Here's your letter right here. It already knows the address. It knows all of the laws. Right? And that's a validation. It gives you mailing instructions, everything. Then it says, do you want to create a matching dispute letter to send to the credit bureaus? Because, right, there are two sides of the transaction. There's the credit bureau side and the creditor side. So it'll handle that. But let's switch over. Let's do this. Let's talk business. How do I build a Paydex? Paydex score. Look, it tells you what is a Paydex score, right? How to build a Paydex step by step. Gives you all the information you need. Gives you the vendor accounts. Tells you to make payments early. Monitor, gives you a time frame. Everything.
That's good stuff, man. So question,
Sure.
Is this available now or is there a launch date?
It's not available now, and there is no launch date. I'm still working on it. It's about 98%, but within the next month. Within the next month, I think I should be ready to give it out to the public.
So are you currently using that with your clients? Like when you it's
Yes.
yourself? Or?
Yes, I've been using it for quite a while over the last 6 months. And this
Gotcha.
is why I've gotten to this point, because I've listened to my clients and all the things they say about credit and the letters and the stall tactics and things of that nature. And so what I've done is I've taken all of that and I've baked it into the software to try to avoid those things from happening and to give people a clear step-by-step strategy to get them from where they are, from where they want to be. Because a lot of people get off track. And here's one of the things that people, they need to know is that just by sending a letter, everything is not going to be removed. There comes a time where sometimes you're going to have to file a lawsuit. And this software is ready for that. Now, let's see. Russ, hold on. What about this? Look at this. You can also download it on your phone as well. Let's see if mine will work. Hey, little Bobby.
You're welcome.
Hey, little Bobby.
Hey, again, I'm right here. Just let me know whatever else you and Valerie need, and I'll be happy to keep up and out.
Well, I'm not talking to Valerie right now. I'm actually on a podcast, and I'm talking to Russell. Say hi to Russell.
Oh, got it. Hey, Russell. Great to have you tuning in, too. I'm here if you both have any questions or just want to chat about anything else.
Yeah, Russell and I, we're on the podcast, and we're talking about how this AI is absolutely amazing as it relates to helping people repair their credit. Can you help us remove collections from our consumer report?
Absolutely. I'd love to help you guys with that. And hey, I'm glad you're finding that AI angle amazing. Credit repair is definitely one of those areas where a little guidance goes a long way. So if you want, we can absolutely dig into how to remove those collections from your reports and get things cleaned up. Just let me know what you need and we'll get started.
Thanks, little Bobby. I'll talk to you later. Thanks. So, Russ, I named mine Little Bobby, but you can name yours whatever you want. And so what's on your phone connects to what's on the desktop. So if you don't want to type it, all you have to do is just talk to it. And you can talk to it in any language, and it'll give you the information you need.
So are you going to offer this as a service, or are you selling it? Help me understand, like, how will it be presented to the public?
I think what I want to do is I want to give people access to the software and then let them use it for themselves. So rather than people going out and paying $1,500 a month for someone else to do it, I've made it so user-friendly that the average person, if you can give it to your 12-year-old and they can use the software. So my goal is to put it in the hands of individual consumers and let them do it themselves. That's ultimately what I want to do.
Brilliant, man. Hey, you're always on the side of innovation and moving things forward. So, like, before we wrap it up here, tell everybody out there where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on most platforms, but predominantly I'm on TikTok. I'm usually on TikTok every morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am the King of Credit on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, same name, I'm King of Credit. You can join my Facebook group. It's called Financial Success, or you can become subscribed to my YouTube channel. Any one of those platforms, you can find me. But like I said, predominantly every morning, 8 a.m. on TikTok, you can find me there.
And also, Rob, on Matters of the Heart and Soul, we always like for people to leave like a book that you would refer to people to read out there, even if it's your own.
No, I have one. Can I give you two?
There you go. Go ahead. Shameless plugs are welcome.
No. This one, and I'm sure you've read this one. This is called The Millionaire Mind.
I have not read that one.
Yeah, The Millionaire, because most people want to become a millionaire, but the key is, do you have the mind? Because you're not going to be a millionaire today thinking the way you think. So this goes into the mind of the millionaire. So this is a good book.
Hold that a little closer to the screen. It was a little fuzzy holding it back. I almost thought it was The Millionaire Next Door. Who's the author of that book?
He made the same book. It's the
same
guy.
Same author. Okay.
Yeah, Thomas J. Stanley.
All right, yeah, because the lettering looks the same on The Millionaire Next Door. I read that one.
And then the other one is Give Yourself Credit, Money Doesn't Grow on Trees by David E. Robinson.
Good stuff. And just briefly, each book, like what's some good takeaways?
So when we talk about the millionaire mind, once again, you talk about it because in order to get your money right, you got to get your mind right. How do millionaires think? Do millionaires just go out and spend their money? Are millionaires patient, persistent, and diligent? And they are. And that's what the book talked about. And you alluded to that earlier, is that it takes time to not only build a million, but sustain a million. And that's basically what you get from this one. When we talk about this book, this talks about credit and how maybe you might be able to grow your credit, right? How to utilize it and make sure that you take care of it and bundle different things together, different products. You can do that together. Also, one of the other things it talks about is discharging debt, which we'll talk about that on a whole nother podcast. But, you know, if you're into the private and the public and discharging debts and you're just coming into that knowledge, this is a good book for that. Give yourself credit. Money Doesn't Grow on Trees by David E. Robinson.
All right. Everybody, once again, this is Robert Scott, a dear friend of mine. We go way back, and you can see why he's a good friend of mine. Not only do we think a lot alike, this guy is super intelligent and always on the cutting edge, keeps me on my toes, keeps me in the loop. I am king of credit, following. And also, Rob, we have to do this again. Definitely, once you roll your product out, bring it back. And
I'm gonna give you a free copy, right? And I'm gonna give you.
No doubt. So I can name it Lil Russ. Hey, one last thing. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the people with before we go?
You know, the only thing that I say is, you know, the pain of every change is forgotten when the benefit of that change is realized. And if you continue to do what you're doing right now, you're always going to have what you have right now. So don't suffer in silence, you know, make a change.
All right. There you guys have it. Mr. Rob Scott. Hey, it's been real, man. Appreciate you. And definitely we're going to follow back up and do a part 2, part 3, whatever's needed to get this point across. All right.
All right, well, appreciate
to everybody out there, until next time, peace.